Well, we're back in the big chair. We're back from Colombia, and what a trip that was. It's a whole nother story for another day. But so somebody was writing me in a comment about what's it like getting sick in prison, and it was a really thought-provoking question because that could be 10 episodes in and of itself. So what I'm gonna do is about getting sick in prison. I'm going to give you a general little idea of what that's like in the joint. And then I'm going to talk about COVID, which was the worst time in prison. And then I'm going to talk about getting my hip done in prison. I had a hip replaced in prison. That's going to be 3 different episodes. So we'll start with this one. What's it like getting sick in prison? What can you expect? So, I mean, first and foremost, you're in a communal environment. So when you hear one person cough, one person sneeze, that's going to go through the whole jail, because there's no way that you could hold it off for weeks, but at some point in time you're going to get it. Maybe you don't one time, but for the 90 percentile you're going to get it, because everybody touches the same 4 shower heads, right? The same 4 spigots for hot water, the same 4 toilets, sinks. I'm saying, it's a small little communal environment. The phones, everybody's basically touching the same things. And when you hear somebody, you can guard against it as much as you can. So that's really just like the menial stuff, like the colds, a flu. You might have a little virus run through the jail. So it's really not much anybody can do for you, right? You got to go to sick call. So there's a process involved that if you get sick and if you want to be seen by the PA, the physician's assistant, the nurse, the doctor. I mean, it's just a whole chain of stuff. So what you would have to do is you would have to go at early in the morning. They make it early in the morning, 7 o'clock, because 90% of the people don't want to get up in the morning, right? Have to do other things. They're busy in the morning. So they make it so, not a lot of people show up. So what you have to do is you have to go down to the health service and the health service department. I say the hospital, right? But in jail, it's the health services. So you'd have to go to health services. There's a request form. Your name, your number, what's your complaint, how long's it been for? So you got to fill out paperwork to get seen. That's basically the first step. So you go down, say you don't feel good, no matter what it is. Maybe feel a lump. I mean, God forbid, that was my worst fear in prison, is anything bad happening health-wise. So, for what I did was a lot of preventive medicine, right? I try to stay in shape. I try to eat right, try to stay positive. And thank God, because it's a lot of luck, right? I'm saying you could do all the right things and still get bad news, what I'm saying? Just grateful that I didn't, And I had bad enough news, right? Had to get my hip done, and that was brutal. We'll get to that later. So you get down, you fill out the paperwork, and then, depending on the situation, I'm saying if you were like you couldn't move, you couldn't breathe, I'm saying some people had some issues, a lot of times, people feign illness too, like they fake them, because they don't want to work. So, a lot of people are jaded in the system, a lot of the administrators, by people like feigning sickness. So there's a little process that goes on. You put in your paperwork, then it's almost called like a triage, right? They'll see, what the worst problems are. You come back at 9 o'clock. We're going to take you in right now, depending on if it's busy or not. Sometimes there's a couple people. Sometimes there's 20. Who knows? Like stuff with a toothache. It depends if the dentist is there. It's the worst, the absolute worst. You know what I'm saying? Just to be in that situation anyway, and then something else on top of that bad situation happening. So, toothaches for me, I'd rather fight 5 guys on a dark alley than anybody mess with my teeth. Even now, today, I was just thinking the other day that you always say, oh, man, because you put in a request for it to get your teeth cleaned. And they'll clean your teeth in the feds, you know what I'm saying? This is a federal system. But they'll clean your teeth for you. You put in a cop-out, every year you're supposed to have it. So maybe every 13 months, once you're done with it, you put another cop-out in and say, hey, I just want to be put on the list to get my teeth cleaned. And the list is usually take you about a year to get your teeth cleaned. The remarkable thing about prison for me was seeing people come to jail and they've never been to the dentist ever in their life, you know? So it kind of put things in perspective to me about other people's situations in life. And, what I was thinking the other day is I've been out for almost 2 years now and I had my teeth cleaned once and I'm up for a teeth cleaning now. But like I keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. When you're in jail and you got nothing else, man, I go to the what they gotta call me. I haven't had my teeth cleaned in 13 months. It's like the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? You're arguing with the warden. I put my name on the list. It's been 13 months. Now I can go get my teeth cleaned, and for some reason I don't have the time for it. So I always put stuff on the back burner like that. My health is always. I try to maintain health engineering activities, but when it comes times to go to the doctor, I hate it. There's been times when I had my hernia operation and, if I showed you a picture of it, you would like physically want to vomit. The thing was out here, it was horrible. I had a picture looking down. People like, oh my God, what is that? But the point of this is that I went to the Boston Medical Center to get it done. And I walked into the room and there was like 30 people, like waiting to get surgery that day. And I'm like, I thought to myself for a second, like, hey, you know what? I can live with this. I hate, and that's why, to me, I don't know why anybody would actually volunteer for surgery. Crazy to me. Crazy. I don't even want to get it done when I need to get it done. So, but getting back to the process in jail, if you're in jail, so there's a sick call, you sign up, you fill the paperwork out, they triage you. If it's not really, you say like, my wrist is bothering, my shoulder's bothering, my elbow's bothering me. There's really nothing that anybody can do for you. They always say that Advil is the BOP wonder drug because they prescribe it for everything. What else can they do? You know what I'm saying? You have to get to a point where, like with my hip, they couldn't do nothing. What could they do for me? Nothing. It's either surgery or nothing. They offer you a cortisone shot, in the middle of the road kind of, and I never wanted to get it because I just thought that would mask the pain, But I stayed active with it. I just kept working out, So there's some things that you can't do. And if you get a cold, like your doctor can't do anything on the street. I don't care if you got a gazillion dollars. I'm saying you got a cold, wait 2 weeks. It's going to go away. So a lot of people in jail, myself included, like would complain about it. Like, oh, they don't do nothing, but so it's just kind of a process. And, speaking about shoulder pain, there was a guy named Stevie Shuko who was a good guy from the South Shore. And he was a boxer. Really good dude, man. I liked him a lot. And Bernie Grossberg, who was my lawyer, was his lawyer as well. But I remember he went and complained that he had shoulder pain. And I'm thinking to myself, Steve, listen, what the fuck can they do for you for shoulder pain? Really, nothing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, send you to physical therapy, send you to another jail. I'm saying, what can they do for you, And so he complained that his shoulder bothered him. His shoulder bothered him. He was a boxer. It hurt to throw a punch. I was like, wow, it's weird. Like, what the? And he went there and they took an x-ray, said they found nothing, kept complaining. He was like, listen, I got to go. And this guy was like a tough guy, you know what I'm saying? So he went to the hospital and did an MRI on him, and he had cysts all through his whole body. They found them on his back, and it was cancer. It was like one of the worst things I've ever seen in jail. And he deteriorated so much that it's like impossible to get drugs in jail, like pain drugs. Next to impossible. They do prescribe them, of course, in very isolated cases. But he was so bad that they just gave him like a handful of Percocets and it was like, just get comfortable because that was that bad. And I remember seeing him one morning in the rec yard, and I was like, "Wow, man, Steve, how you feel? You're out in the rec yard." And he just looked at me and he was like, "Yeah, it's just a shorter walk to the hospital. I don't want to go back to my unit and then come back." Like, he was that sick. You know what I mean? And, I talked with him for a while, and I got real angry with the warden because he had to get an airlift to get to a hospital. And there was really nothing they could do for him. The tumor is spread all over his body, but his family wanted to see him. And I ended up arguing with the warden. I was like, hey, warden, this guy's got cancer. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got to get a plane to get him out of here. That's what they do. They airlift you, like single, like just one person on a plane, on a jet, and get you to a outside, a hospital. He was going to Butner. But the warden was like, hey, listen, Bartolomeo, I hate to say this, but there's only a couple of jets, and we're waiting for this guy's turn to come up. You know what I mean? So it seemed kind of like a little harsh, right? But just resources, right? And you're in a system where there's a lot of people, and unfortunately, people do get sick in these situations. And he finally made it to Butner, and his family got to see him, but, he died in Butner, but, maybe a couple weeks after that. He was in really bad shape, so and I mean, the guy was in good shape, used to box. It's just, that's why I just feel blessed all the time about, it's such a helpless situation. Even, if you get sick outside, I'm saying, it's just brutality. But getting sick on the inside and dying in prison was one of my worst fears. And I've seen it a couple of times, especially with him. It was really, it was very impactful. It was a moving experience for me. I talked to him in depth about, he was just, talking about, ready to die, and it was very impactful, moments that I had. And I remember him talking to me about, like, the music he liked. And I still remember, like, he talked about Enigma, and I used to listen to Enigma, when I went to sleep at night. I would put my headphones on and my earplugs so I could sleep over the noise in the unit. And it was always Enigma. And I always thought about him when I used to listen to that. But, that was a very unfortunate situation, and just one of the worst case scenarios about getting sick in prison. So, that's the, official process, is to put the paperwork in, and they'll see you and they'll call you, depending on the gravity of your condition. And, it's a helpless situation. But now there's other situations so I've been sick in prison, with a virus, a norovirus, maybe food poisoning. But I'm not really too sure if it was food poisoning or not, because food poisoning, I went to the chow hall and ate. And I remember one time in Fairton for sure, I remember it was something I ate. But, nobody else but me got sick. So I don't know if it was, it's hard to say, right? Because usually food poisoning is a bunch of people get sick. So I don't know if it was norovirus, but I remember eating something that I thought was odd, and I ended up getting sick that night where, defecating, throwing up at the same time. It's one of the worst feelings in prison. I've had it happen about 4 times to me. And at that point in time, I was in a 2-man cell, which was, tolerable. I mean, I was sleeping, like I was laying on the floor, shivering, throwing up, and I was too sick to get back up into my bed, and and I didn't want to be far enough from the toilet bowl, and it was just, listen, it's the worst 24 hours. You wish you would die, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, it's not a great look because you just know it's going to pass, but it's such a horrible, horrible feeling. And now as you get into these lower security institutions, which is even worse, because I remember I got sick the same way, and it was my fault. I ate something I knew that was questionable, but, it was like I had this chicken. I wanted to eat it. It was, good protein, but I ended up getting sick. Valuable lesson, right? Like I was born slow, boy, I'll tell you. So, but I remember there, you don't have a 2-man cell. And what the meaning of a 2-man cell is that you have your own toilet there. Here, it was dorms, right? There was cubicles. So you're in one of these 6 toilets that everybody uses, and just the picture, being on, as people urinating, defecating, and you're so weak, you're on the floor throwing up, defecating at the same time, and it's, brutality. Unimagined brutality. It's just like brutality on top of brutality. But I've had those situations happen, more than once, right? So I'd say 4 times I've had that happen to me. I remember one time it was happening to me in Devons, right? And it wasn't the worst case, but I was still throwing up and shitting at the same time. And I remember like, ugh, and I'm real loud when I throw up. I don't know why, but I mean, I'm not a quiet guy when I throw up. So the cop heard me and he came to my room and he was like, "Hey, Bartolomeo, you all right? Want me to get the nurse?" And I just looked at him like, "There's nothing nobody can do about this. I mean, I appreciate it, but this, you just gotta ride this one out. There's no help that anybody can give you. It's the most helpless situation you'll ever be in your whole life. You have to wait for time to pass, and you're just dry heaving, like leaking out of your ass. It's so horrible. But that's happened to me a few times, and it's not fun. But at least at that point when I was in Devon's, I had a single cell. I had a room because I was an orderly up there, and I took care of the hospital and the blood dialysis labs down there. Was a blood spill orderly, so I had my own spot, which at least I could just lay on. I knew my floor was immaculate in my bathroom, right? So at least I could just lay on the floor near the toilet and just getting up and do what I had to do, and then go back on the floor, sweating, just not good times. So that's another thing. Just think about that. Like, you're in jail, you're doing 1,000,000 years, and then you have to, like, I always remember I had a friend of mine in Fort Dix that used to say, like, you're just going through your life, like, and it's miserable as it is, and you're like, and now this is happening. You know what I mean? So it's always something on top of something on top of something. But, the great news is, knock on wood, that, I never had anything really life-altering happen to me in jail, and I always try to take care of my health. So not a good place to get sick in jail. Not a good place at all to get sick. And when one person has something, you're probably going to get it. I don't care. I don't care how hot. I used to think, like, I got the worst immune system, but it's a communal environment. You know what I'm saying? And just people just get it, and it's just, it's coming, like, especially like in the wintertime. The wintertime in jail, either you're sick, waiting to get sick, or getting over being sick. And that's why when they had these crazy reactions with coronavirus, why it bothered me so much. I've been getting sick in prison forever. Nobody cared about it. Now, if you get sick, now they lock you up, they take everything away from you, they put you in a box. But that's going to be the next episode. The next episode is going to be about getting sick in prison. How was coronavirus in prison? The absolute worst time. I felt like at one point in time, I thought suicide was a better option. I'm being honest with you. Yeah, seriously. So the next episode about getting sick in prison is going to be coronavirus. And then after coronavirus, I got a couple of great stories about when I got my hip done. So I had my hip replaced in prison, and I got some pretty cool stories about it. But for right now, keep subscribing. I reached 1,000 subscribers, which is pretty cool. Thank you. And listen, the comments is what makes this content. I was laxed a few days because I was in Colombia getting a lot of rest and eating good. And that's a lie. But we're back on track, and we're going to make 3 episodes. And this is the first one. Keep liking, keep subscribing. Share this channel with your friends if you like it. And that's it.